All right, let's dive straight into an absolutely incredible intersection of ancient texts and hard archaeology in this explainer. We're going to look at a biblical prophecy that actually names a conquering king, literally calls him out by name, about 160 years before he was even born. But we aren't just looking at the prophecy in a vacuum. We're going to contrast it with a jaw-dropping archaeological discovery that documents the exact same historical event, but from a completely different, almost upside-down perspective. So what happens when the biblical account and the archaeological records present two vastly different motivations for the exact same historical event? On one hand, we have a prophet claiming the God of Israel is pulling the strings of an entire empire. On the other, we have the conquering king himself putting it in stone, well, clay, that a completely different deity gave him his marching orders. It's like a massive historical puzzle. And to figure it out, we first have to look at the prophecy itself. Section 1. The Anointed King Foretold, a prophecy 160 years in advance. To really appreciate this, look at the sheer scale of the timeline we're dealing with here. Isaiah drops this prophecy around 700 BC. Cyrus? He isn't even a thought yet. He's not born until about 590 BC. Then watch his rapid rise to power. He sweeps through Media in 549 BC, takes Persia around 548, completely overthrows Lydia in 540, and finally captures Babylon in 538 BC. The prophet Isaiah is handing over the specific name of this king, Cyrus, so the captive Jews will know exactly who to look for more than a century and a half later. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 1 states, "Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut." The text is explaining how the Lord specifically handpicked this foreign, pagan king to crush Babylon. That vivid imagery of holding his right hand, that means God is directly backing him up, giving him the power to subdue these massive, terrifying nations and literally fling the gates of enemy cities wide open. Now here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. The Hebrew word used in that verse for anointed is Mashiach. We translate it as Messiah. This is a highly sacred title, and here, of all places, it's being given to a pagan king. Cyrus acted as a literal earthly savior for the Jews, pulling them out of Babylonian captivity. And this actually lays some incredible groundwork for how later generations might have misunderstood the whole concept of a Messiah. If the scriptures called an earthly king, who saved them from physical captivity, a Messiah, you can totally see why later generations were looking for a political or military savior to free them from Rome, missing the message of a purely spiritual redeemer. Section 2. Conquering the unconquerable city, breaking the gates of brass. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 2 states, "I will go before thee, and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron." And listen, this isn't just nice poetic language. Breaking these impediments refers to a very literal, on-the-ground military strategy. When Cyrus took Babylon in 538 BC, he didn't just smash his army against the walls. He achieved victory by actually drying up the river that flowed right through the center of the city, allowing his troops to march directly under the city walls, completely bypassing their so-called impenetrable defenses. The spoils from that victory were mind-boggling. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 3 states, "And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, am the God of Israel." Our source material notes that treasures of darkness specifically refers to the massive wealth that Eastern kings would hide away in obscure, heavily guarded vaults for absolute emergencies. Later on, Alexander the Great found similar mega-hoards among the Persians. By securing this immense, hidden Babylonian wealth, Cyrus instantly had the resources he needed to famously return the sacred temple vessels back to the Jewish people. Section 3. The Cyrus Cylinder Contrast, a historical plot twist. Okay, so here is the massive historical plot twist. We have a stark contrast in the historical record. The biblical account, found in the book of Ezra, records that the Lord, Jehovah, stirred up the spirit of Cyrus to rebuild the house of God in Jerusalem. But when archaeologists dug up the Cyrus cylinder, which is Cyrus's very own historical record of the event, he attributes his sweeping victory and his subsequent command to return captive peoples and their idols directly to Marduk, or Bel, the great god of Babylon. Cyrus literally asks these resettled gods to recommend him to Marduk. He totally thought he was just doing the work of the Babylonian gods. But what's absolutely brilliant is that the biblical text already anticipated this exact situation. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 4 states, For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. Until the fall of Babylon, and really even after, as we just saw with his cylinder, Cyrus did not truly know the God of Israel. He was summoned, he was given the title of anointed, and he was used for a highly specific divine purpose, completely irrespective of his own personal theology. Section 4. Sovereign over all history, the unknowing weapon. Hammering home this unknowing weapon motif, Isaiah chapter 45, verse 5 states, I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me. To gird someone essentially means to arm them, to make them ready for war. God readied Cyrus for battle. The prophecy makes it crystal clear to the Jewish captives that their upcoming deliverance is 100% the work of Jehovah, the one true God, and absolutely not the work of foreign idols, no matter who Cyrus himself decided to thank on his clay cylinder. This total sovereignty gets pushed even further. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7 states, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Now, a quick caveat. Create evil here, within the context of the source text, refers specifically to the turmoil, destruction, and calamity of war, functioning as the direct opposite of peace. The Lord is declaring that he directs all earthly affairs. Sometimes bringing about righteousness and peace actually requires stepping through the darkness and the sword of war. In 538 BC, peace and freedom for the Israelites were forged directly through the violent, earth-shattering conquests of Cyrus. Section 5. The Ransom of Nations, Earthly Rewards for Liberating Israel. Jumping down a bit, God outlines the terms of this deal. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 13 states, I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, not for price nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord is stating point blank that Cyrus will liberate the Jews and assist in rebuilding Jerusalem without demanding a single coin or any direct reward from the Jewish people themselves. He does it essentially pro bono for them. But Cyrus didn't walk away empty-handed. As detailed in the very next verse, God gave Cyrus a specific ransom on behalf of Israel. As divine compensation for letting the Israelites go free, God basically handed over entire other nations to Cyrus. He was granted conquests over Egypt, Ethiopia, and the Sabaeans, who are described in the texts as men of stature, likely referring to marauding Bedouin tribes. These nations and all their wealth and labor were essentially handed over to Cyrus as his payment, his grand earthly reward from the Lord of hosts. Section 6. An everlasting salvation. Every knee shall bow. Shifting now to an eternal perspective. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 17 states, But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. According to the sources, this isn't just talking about a couple of good years of peace. It actually refers to a massive period of freedom extending from Cyrus's time all the way until 70 AD. That phrase, world without end, literally translates to for the ages. It was a true era-defining salvation, all initiated by the decree of an unwitting Persian king. The prophet then grounds this in the very purpose of creation. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 18 states, For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. The text explains that God formed the earth specifically to be a home for mankind, to be inhabited in order, in structure, and in righteousness, not to be left in the chaos of constant exile, war, and desolation. Finally, looking way ahead to the ultimate culmination of human history, God swears an oath. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 23 states, I have sworn by myself, the word is gone out of my mouth in righteousness and shall not return, that unto me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear. Just as Cyrus was unknowingly directed to fulfill a grand divine purpose, the text is declaring that ultimately, in the end, all nations, all kings, and all peoples will recognize and bow to God's supreme will. Which really leaves us with a profound question about the intersection of faith and the historical record. I mean, think about it. If the great Cyrus of Persia could completely redraw the map of the ancient world, fully believing he was serving Marduk, while simultaneously fulfilling a 160-year-old prophecy of Jehovah, what unseen forces might be driving the monumental historical events of our own time? Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.